If you love the intimacy of Oceania's R-Class ships, the Regatta, Insignia, Nautica, Serena, you might have noticed a worrying trend. Oceania is building bigger ships like the Vista and Allura and soon the Sonata, and shifting away from that cozy 700-passenger experience. But there's another line that is doubling down on exactly what you love. Today, we're comparing Oceania's R-Class directly against Azamara to show you why your next favorite small ship might not be Oceania at all. Hi everybody, I am Leah. Doug is behind the camera today, and within the last year we have taken cruises on the R-Class ships of both Azamara and Oceania, and after doing so we started putting together a little bit of a comparison list. Now, to be clear, we're not travel agents, we're not trying to sell you anything, so whether you choose Azamara or Oceania, totally up to you. But we feel like from a press perspective, Azamara isn't as well known. So we wanted to spend just a little bit of time sharing with you kind of what we saw, what we experienced. And in the end, I'm going to follow up with our cost per person per day, what we paid, what was included, so that, you know, maybe you have something to think about if you really, really enjoy that R-Class ship. So let's get started. First of all, these ships are all the same hardware at the core. They all came from Renaissance Cruises. They were all built between 1998 and 2001. So at the core, they are sister ships. They're awesome because 700 passengers about. They can get into smaller ports. They tend to focus on destination immersion. So if you're like us and it's really all about the itinerary, these ships can be great for that. Oceania has 4 of them. They have Insignia, Regatta, Serena, and Nautica. And Azamara has 4 just as well, with the Quest, the Journey, the Pursuit, and the Onboard. So to be clear, they're all sisters. But what we're seeing in the experiences we had are a little bit different, and we want to share that view with you. So first up, let's look at the current status of the Oceania fleet, because this is where it gets a little interesting. As you know, if you're Oceania fans, NCL seems to be very focused on the net new builds for Oceania. So you have the Vista, you have the Allura, and you have the Sonata that's coming out. And I know that they just announced, I believe it's 3 more, although they haven't named those classes. But they're beautiful, they're new, they're 1,200 people. So as I said, some people really like that smaller ship focus. So it's a little different being on one of those if you're a big fan of the small. But this is where things get a little interesting as well, because of the 4 ships on the R-Class section, currently the Regatta is chartered out to Norwegian, Explorations by Norwegian. And it's very popular, so they have extended that at least until 2028. And I do have a link to that article that I will put in the description if you want to read that. So that's one ship that's kind of set aside and unavailable for regular bookings. You'll go through this other company. But also the Nautica and the Insignia only have schedules out on Cruise Plum until about October, November of 2027. Maybe something will come out soon, but usually they are out. Like the Serena has a schedule out till March of 2028. It's possible that Oceania may be saving these ships for some creative world itineraries too, so just keep an eye out. We also haven't seen any announcements or plans by Oceania to do any major refurbishments for these ships. So it's just curious, is there going to continue to be a focus on these or not? Okay, so on to Azamara. They aren't building new ships, but they just announced a major program. They're going to spend $80 million to refurbish all 4 of these R-Class ships, starting with the Quest. And that starts in the fall of 2026, so this year. And it's pretty major. They're literally adding a floor to the ship. They're bringing in new suites, and they're doing what they're calling a modern overhaul that will include adding their most popular bar to this one, doing all the pool areas. It's supposed to be really beautiful. I will also put this link in the description if you want to see more information on it. So the way I've kind of set this up, on one hand, you have Oceania, who's building new ships, but they're bigger. And then on the other side, you have Azamara, who's really kind of doubling down on this experience. But does that $80 million investment make Azamara a better value today? I'm going to break it down into 7 different points to help you look at why. So let's start with one of the most important aspects to us of this size ship, that 700 passenger category, and that is destination immersion. I've broken it into 4 different components here, and I just want to compare. We take these ships to see the world, not just to cruise on a ship. But there's some interesting data here. So I looked at all itineraries that are booked on the R-Class ships between Azamara and Oceania for overnights, for what is posted right now, which is February 26th all the way through March of 2028. And what was interesting is there were 206 scheduled overnights on Azamara and only 72 on Oceania ships. So it's just a comparative point. I do think Oceania, especially on their newer ships, including their Marina and Riviera, which are kind of the same size as the new ships, they are adding a lot more overnights than they used to. So I want to be absolutely fair here. But on the R class, where that overnight can really matter too, especially with the 700 person size, Azamara had a lot more to offer here. For signature events that focus on the destination, I don't know that anybody does anything that compares to the Amazing Evenings, whether those are taking the entire ship off into port to experience local culture or bringing that event on board. It's usually really well done, and people have had some amazing things. I don't see Oceania has anything like that. So to me, the nod here kind of goes to Azamara as well. Enrichment speakers, this one for us is a nod to Oceania. They did a better job of having individuals on board that had experience with where we were going, providing information, even crafts and things that had to do with where you were going. Azamara, on our recent South America trip, they didn't have a destination. They had speakers, but no one who was South American focused. Actually, the cruise director kind of apologized about that because he felt like it was a big miss. They said they tried to hire somebody, they couldn't find anybody, which I'm thinking for South America. Anyway, Oceania gets the nod here. And then deep port information. We were really impressed by the amount of information Azamara gives you when you walk into a port. There's a huge map if you want, the walking map. But what was really helpful was all of the information they had. Usually it was a double-sided form, but it was everything from all the taxi services, ride services, what should it cost you, even down to what you should eat. Where you could go and how far away that was going to be. I mean, it was a phenomenal amount of information. And for us, we like to have the ability to do our own thing in some of these ports. And it was really well done. Versus Oceania tended to focus on trying to get you to go on one of their excursions, which, as you and I know, those are all kind of hit or miss across the board for all cruise lines. So on this one, port immersion, we kind of give the nod to Azamara. So our next comparison point, and I know this is a very important one for everybody, is service. Azamara prides itself on the length of time of service of some of their employees, and we can attest to the fact we sat and talked to bartenders who'd been there 12, 15 years, room attendants that had been there 7 or 8 years, and it was a distinct difference for us because I think with that type of longevity, those team members they learned your preferences so quick. Anyway, I think that these two are big differentiators in service, as well as visible officers. I'm not saying that Oceania's officers are not visible at all, but I'm telling you, the officers on Azamara, the captain was literally outside every day. When we disembarked, we embarked. The people are everywhere and asking you how you're doing. We even had an officer come in the gym and just kind of look around, make sure everybody was doing okay. So on this one, I know it's subjective, but we've got to give our experience service nod to Azamara. Next up is food offerings. And I, again, know this is very subjective, so I just want to quickly walk through what our experience is, our class to our class here. So main dining room, that little yellow triangle, that's a tie. Both had excellent food. We had a couple misses on both, but you're probably not going to have too many bad meals on either one of these lines. While both of them have great brunch offerings, Oceania's kind of blows you away with, hot pots and all these really creative things versus just kind of picking up the MDR and moving it into another room. Really well done, and I think Oceania takes the lead there. Menu variety, the nod's got to go to Azamara on this one. Our last cruise, we counted there was still the little numbers, it was 24. So that's a lot of different menus versus our 2-week rotation on Regatta. was starting to get a little repetitive. Pool Grill, I'm also going to give the nod to Oceania because they had a creative special every day that we just don't see. Yes, there might be a special sandwich on Azamara, but Oceania kind of went all out. The officers would line up outside in Waves Grill looking for, was it paella or ribs or whatever. They just did a really nice job with that Waves Grill. So the next one would be the buffet. This is even, again, any buffet, we struggle with dried out meats under the lamps and all that kind of stuff. It's just kind of a thing. I think they're both the exactly same setup, exactly the same. So with the same patio out back, except Azamara has a sunset bar. But you wouldn't have, for us, we wouldn't have been able to tell the difference what ship we were on, so that's definitely a tie. Specialty dining, I'm going to give a slight nod to Oceania on this one. The dining itself and the quality of food was very similar, very similar. So it's not about the quality of food. I think the differentiator for Oceania is that you'd get assigned a certain number of specialty dining that is with your room type, but if there's availability, and usually there is, you can go to another one for free, versus Azamara was a $49.99 a person as of our last cruise. So I gave a little bit of a nod to Oceania for being a little more generous on that side. Afternoon tea, high tea. I'm also going to give the nod here to Oceania because they had an everyday afternoon white glove roll the card out tea, versus Azamara's every day is sort of like you went up to a little buffet setting and picked up what you want, and they brought you a hot pot and that type of thing. So, well, that was nice. It's just not similar. They would do, on our 22-day cruise, they offered one, what they called high tea, which, dress code, very fancy. They only did it once, though. So, weighing that out, I think Oceania put a little bit more effort there. Availability of snacks, this one has got to go to Azamara. Their Mosaic Cafe, the rotation of food, the volume of food, the quality, I didn't see anything like that on Oceania. Again, we're talking our class ships. We're not talking the bigger ones that have the new, great coffee shop. There was basically a little tray that had 5 things on it on Oceania outside and it was kind of sad because people would come back at 2:30 in the afternoon and it'd be gone. So Azamara's went all out here. Pretty much they had breakfast type things, and after 12 they would switch to more savory type bites. I mean, there was just something there all the time. So snacks kind of goes to Azamara. And then lastly, food events. I think that Azamara did a great job, whether it was the officers' barbecue, the white night party is a huge, seafood bonanza. They just, again, there's special things on Oceania too, but kind of nothing like the food events on Azamara. So when you look across these, they're pretty even as far as food is concerned, and I would basically call this one a tie. So let's talk about drinks. This is going to be kind of short and sweet. First of all, the included wines on Azamara, if you watched our episode 3 of our South America trip, we actually did a wine tasting. Pretty good what was included, and that is any time of the day you can have whatever you want, wine, beer, and then there was an included spirits list, so you could have any kind of cocktail as long as it was made with those spirits. So great inclusion. Most people can get by with just that. Oceania today's offering, again, this is February 2026, is the wine and beer that you can select when you book your fare. That is, you're allowed to have wine and beer during lunch and dinner hours at different facilities, and it's from the included list that day. So Azamara kind of definitely gets the nod here. The cost to upgrade to the top package, there at last check, Oceania was about $80 a day a person to upgrade to the top, and it was half of that on Azamara because there was already such a piece of inclusion. So just price wise, Azamara gets the nod there. And then supply is just a comment I've seen across all cruise lines. Our 22-day Azamara cruise is the first time we have not run out Whispering Angel, La Crema. I mean, all of the things that we kind of got used to, and I'll expand that out to almond milk, to raspberries, things that most lines run out of. Azamara didn't run out of anything. So first time for that. So definitely Azamara gets the nod here. Next up, entertainment and things to do. So main evening show, There's an advantage that Azamara has here is that on a sea day, they will actually add an early show. So it's not just the late show. Oceania is 9 or 9:30 every night. We really appreciated that, especially, a long day of touring and you wanted to go to the show, have dinner, and be done with the night. So that's a really nice advantage. We'd also say that talent-wise, and again, subjective based on the cruise you're at, but they would have individual musicians on Azamara that just sort of blew you away. The guy that played Santana, I mean, was just incredible, versus Oceania tended to be more kind of variety shows and that type of thing, and very much stuck to that late show. Special events, we've already talked about Amazing Evening and White Night, I'll add. I know that Oceania on the bigger ships has a blue night now. They were trying to roll it out to the smaller ships, but I don't think that's happened yet. So special events, kind of Azamara gets the nod. The other three I called out as a tie. So Piano Bar both had two very talented, very popular pianists on the cruises that we were on. Hosted games, trivia, all that stuff, even games, puzzles, they all very, very similar offerings across that. So with this particular category, Azamara gets a little bit of a nod here. We've got two more. This one I just call odds and ends, and the last one is going to be suite inclusion comparisons. So we're almost done here. So laundry, I have to give the nod to Azamara. Both of them do laundry beautifully. Everything came back just fine, but Azamara gets it back in a day. Oceania was 3 days, 2 to 3, but you also can't turn anything in the last 3 days because they have to be given that 3 days to get it done. So that Azamara gets the nod there. Fitness classes, to me, quality, the instructors, they were great. They're included and they were about similar in offering. The Daily Show, I don't know if any of you are geeks like us who like to get up and watch that Daily Show, but I really felt like Oceania was way more entertaining. It wasn't just this, here's what we're doing today, but they really made it interesting. They interviewed different people from the ship, and I don't know, it was fun. On our last Azamara cruise, the people are very kind and nice, but all they basically did was read the description of here's what we're doing today, and then they read advertisements on what was going on in different stores. So it was like, yeah, we didn't even watch it. We gave up watching it after a while. So internet, same on both. They both have the entry-level Starlink. They both are have an undersized subscription for the ship. If you want more information on that, go see episode 3 of our South America trip. We do speed tests and everything. Public spaces comfort, about the same. It's all, they replace furniture, cushions, everything. It is cushier, much cushier than what you find on mainline ships. So we're pretty happy with that. And then last is loyalty program. I needed to give a little bit of a nod to Azamara because after our first cruise, 22 days in just an entry-level suite, we automatically have 2 free days that get discounted towards our next cruise, versus those of you familiar with Oceania, it takes a while to build up status. It takes a long time. So we were really impressed with that loyalty program. So on this one, we give the nod to Azamara. Last one, folks, and this one is if you are looking at booking the entry-level suite or you want to compare how the offerings look across the board, I wanted to just give this to you in a visual format. So butler service, I feel like our experience at Oceania Butler was way more anticipatory of our needs. We had, maybe it was just a situation with a person we were assigned on Quest, but they're great. But I think that we had a person on Oceania that literally was bringing us stuff before we even asked for it. So that was kind of fabulous. Specialty dining access. Now, I'm going to call this one a tie, but this is really your preference. So on Azamara, you can have as much specialty dining as you want. You just got to get a reservation, or make sure they know that you want a reservation if someone hasn't showed up that night. By the end of the cruise, the restaurant was not very full at all, so I don't think you have any problems if you want reservation. But you can go all you want when you're in a continent suite. On Oceania, you get the number of reservations that are assigned to your room type, which for us on our cruise was 3. You can make more if reservations are available, but a lot of times you end up having to share a table, which you may or may not like. But what they do is you can order from a specialty restaurant to be delivered to your suite anytime, as many times as you want. So there were times, after snorkeling all day, I didn't feel like going to get dressed for dinner. So you pick the one that suits you, what you prefer. But we liked both of these options, and it's really hard to say which one is better. Afternoon canapes, Oceania gives you a menu to choose from. And the good news was there's a lot on there. You can choose savory, sweet, whatever, and you can mix and match. And it's just a defined set list of things. And after like, I don't know, 10 days, we were like, we don't want any more of that. On Azamara, you told them what you wanted. They just brought it. I said, how about some cold shrimp and maybe some cheese and crackers or whatever. And they just would bring whatever you asked for. So just a little bit different in how they handle canapes. Laundry service. So the turnaround, it's just a turnaround time. It's a day. And we had laundry service, more laundry service included, which was really nice. Bathroom on our class, I have to, at this point, I'm giving the nod to Oceania for sure. They have a much better bathroom. It's all glass enclosed shower. There's no curtain like there is on Azamara, and the storage was incredible. The way that they've retrofitted that bathroom on Regatta when we were on it was beautiful. So we'll see what happens with the big retrofit this fall as to how Azamara keeps up with that. Couch versus chair room. This is more on room comfort. Oceania actually gives you a couch. We just had one chair. Well, it's kind of a big bulky chair, 2 chairs and a table. And it wasn't as comfortable on Azamara. Not a big deal. Patio comfort. Oceania, the chairs had bigger padding. It was just more comfortable. And then main room storage. I have to give Azamara the nod here. So either you get good storage in the bathroom, you get good storage in the main room. But they had huge drawers. It kind of went the whole length of the room. So there was plenty of storage for the longer itineraries. Bathroom products, I'm giving the win to Azamara. I've made my thoughts known to Oceania on the Aquamar products. They were watered down. They dried out my hair. I was not a fan. The Lalique on Azamara, ladies, was way better and was very happy with that product. Again, I believe Oceania is listening, but I haven't seen any changes in that. In-room tea service, well, only Azamara provides that. They literally roll the cart to your door every day at 3 or 3:30 if you want it. Champagne and spirit in room, they both give you champagne in the room, but Azamara lets you choose a spirit of your choice, which is great, and a nod to them. And then lastly, the spa terrace access, both of them, same space. But Azamara has put a lot more chairs back there. There's way more places to sit, plus couches. And they have drink service back there, which was a really nice surprise. So Azamara gets the nod here. So all up on suite amenities, Azamara kind of gets the win on this one too. Okay, so let's dive into the pricing comparison here, because this is probably what you want to know the most about. First up, I want to kind of lay out how I did this. So for Oceania, we were on for 15 days. We were in a penthouse suite. I have placed out to the side. I want to tell you how I've equalized these for them to be as normalized as possible so you can compare. But we had a group cruise rate that included the Prestige beverage package as well as prepaid gratuities. I have removed anything about shore excursions from both so that they're even. But the bottom line is we paid $547 per person per day when you kind of normalize this, taking out the shore excursion piece. On Azamara, it was a 22-day trip, but we already had the ultimate beverage package because we purchased an indulgence package. So what I've applied here is a rate of what that would have cost to the fare. Gratuities were already included. That made the person per price of $463. So it's a pretty good value on Azamara as well. And I know that pricing fluctuates and moves around, but I just wanted to show you that, this is about the price for a entry-level suite with the same inclusions to give you an idea of pricing. The next thing I did, just in case you're not a drinker, I have a lot of people comment, I don't drink, I don't need to have that in my fare. So if I normalize this, taking out the top-level drink packages like we had, and we simply go with what they included, which with Oceania, you could choose the shore excursions instead of like having wine and beer at dinner, and you're looking at about $476 per person per day. With Azamara, the included drinks are already there, and you're still looking at, without buying the indulgent package, $423 per person per day. So I think that should give you a good comparison of about what you'd expect to pay in the entry-level cabin without drinks. All right, so before we get into the final verdict, just remember we are a small channel and we would really appreciate if this is helping you in any way that you subscribe and turn on notifications. Again, we're little and we're probably not going to appear anywhere unless you subscribe. So let's look at the final verdict. I'm going to put this slide up, but just know, I know it looks like it was a sweep. It was not. These are tiny little things. I just went through all of them. So some of them were just little smidges and edges that gave the final nod on the Azamara side. And again, with food being so subjective, that one is truly a tie. But I think that context is really key here. Oceania is a fantastic cruise line. As a matter of fact, we are getting on the Vista tomorrow in Lima, Peru, and we're doing a Central America exploration. We are also booked on the brand new Sonata when she comes out next summer, and we are super excited about that. But the reality is, sometimes that R-Class experience with the 700 customers is exactly what you need in order to get into the tiny ports of Brazil or wherever else in the world is that you're going to go. And some people just prefer that less amount of people and space to move around. So the point is, if you love R-Class, you don't have to give up on that experience. And my point was really here was to introduce you to Azamara if you haven't given them a chance. And know that you can have a wonderful experience on one of those ships and still in that very friendly, small R-Class that you like. And I will say this, if we were looking at two itineraries that were very similar, at this point in time today, I would give the nod to Azamara and choose that. We've already got 2 free days coming, and it makes a difference in making that trip even more affordable for us. So as always, if I have missed anything, if you think I'm flat out wrong or right or whatever, feel free to leave some comments and we'll give some context to your fellow cruisers because we're all here to kind of help each other out. So thanks for following along, and I hope this was helpful.